are actually quite closer. Okay, guys. And we're back again. This will be shot number 2.
Take 2. Right?
Take 2. Okay. I'm visiting Bronwyn today at Knitt Shop Love in Simonstown. I forgot to say it's in Simonstown. Yeah. And we've known each other. She told me, I think
it's about 4 years now.
Yes, that we've known each other, and she's an avid supplier of South African yarns.
Yeah. Huge supporter.
Yes, and she also has her own yarn dyeing company. So yeah, let's talk about that now. Okay. You can repeat yourself again and say exactly. Tell us about Knitt Shop Love.
Okay, so I started Knitt Shop Love about, I think it's 5-6 years ago now. Basically because I was knitting products. I'd previously been knitting products for stores and for orders, and realized I could buy in wholesale stuff, and it just morphed from there into I could now supply other people. So my range just grew and grew and grew. I met somebody like Elmarie, then I'd add that to my list of products that I supplied, and was amazed and overjoyed to discover how many South African dyers we have, and how many, and they're all women. Well, the ones that I supply are all women, local. The furthest I get from is Karumian, which is Eastern Cape. So it's very proudly South African.
Yes, and also as far as possible local.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely.
I think the first time we actually talked, we were on exactly the same wavelength, and tell me about the variety of yarns that you have, the different brands, because I asked you just now what your favorite yarn was, but I can see you have quite a large variety, not only of brands, but of the yarn thicknesses, the types.
Yeah, everything from lace through to chunky, basically. Okay. Yeah. So my favorite is double knit merino because it's very, very squishy, and it's just, I always love the way that it comes out. Even when it's been blocked, it really comes out beautifully. I stock cotton from sock weight to double knit. And I've got a bamboo range as well from Moyo, and then the rest is merino linen blend, and alpaca merino blend, yeah, and just straight merino. There's one merino I have that's got 25% nylon in it for the socks for the longevity, which was a huge thing for me to get over. Because it wasn't pure. It was it had a non-natural fibre in it, so.
But we can talk about that later, because I'm actually interested in stocking some of that myself at some point, but I've not really immediately. How do you feel about the comparison between imports and local yarns at the moment? Do you think, if you have to say quality wise, will South African yarns
most definitely match up? Definitely. If you're comparing apples and apples, then definitely. South African yarns, I prefer them, but I also prefer them on an ethical level, because I just feel that we don't need to be importing other people's stuff. We really don't. It's going to be more expensive because of the exchange rate as well, and we've got more than enough here. There's no need to shop elsewhere. There really isn't. I've even had a customer this year in January from Poland. I got stuff. I had to send stuff to her in Poland. So you know, it's South African yarn is well loved as well.
It is, and I think very few people overseas realize that most of the hand dyed yarns that they buy there comes from us.
Yeah,
comes from South Africa. Yeah. So it's a good thing. If you have to say brand wise, except for Hey Honey, which one would you pick for yourself?
That's a toughie.
No, for yourself.
To make for myself.
Yes.
I think for consistency, because most indie dyers, same with Hey Honey, you don't get a repeat of the colour.
No, so, I wouldn't know what you're talking about.
So you don't get a. So if you're okay with that, with shawls and things, but if you wanted to be knitting, say jumpers for the family or something like that, then I'd go with Cowgirl Blues, because and Bridget's amazing. So if I could hold of her and say I've got a customer who wants to knit a jumper and I need 8 skeins, then she will dye 8 skeins in the same dye lot for me.
Okay, so she's got more of a solid
recipe.
Yes.
Yeah. So the colours are consistent, so you know you can order olive or charcoal or something.
It's interesting because yesterday I had the same discussion with Mincy, and she of Naughty Habit, and she said exactly the same thing. She said there's a market for people who almost have a factory type of setup.
Yes. Yes.
Where they have set recipes, and there's a need for that in South Africa, but there's also a need for the more creative.
Yes, definitely.
So there's a market for both of them.
No, there is. And I think because I say cargo piece as well because I am a fan of the double knit, you see.
Yes, yes.
And so
Judy, I noticed those.
Whenever Judy from Caribbean have done a double knit and she's been in Cape Town, I've bought myself my own personal stash because it's not something that actually comes in her, what do you want to say, colorways, in her options.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So that's why cargo blues I'd go for.
Okay. So tell us about Hey Honey.
Okay.
Where did Hey Honey start and why?
Hey Honey started at the beginning of last year with my good friend Liesel.
Yes, so it's not you. She was meant to be here, but she couldn't.
She had a granny emergency. So
a granny emergency.
It is. So Liesel does the dyeing. So we discuss colors. Most of the time, we discuss colors beforehand because obviously, if you're a knitter or a creator, you even a human, whatever. If you're just a normal human, you have a color where you'll lead. You know that your favorite. You're gonna lean towards those. So you have to kind of discuss that too. To say like, can we bring in some greens or can we bring in some yellows or if that's not it. So we do discuss the colors beforehand most times, and Lisa does that part of it, the creative part of it. I'm the marketing sales side. Yeah.
But also I think. What you're saying is true because people will go according to their own wardrobes, really.
Yes.
You will tend to buy yarn that will go with your wardrobe unless you are a dyer yourself.
Ah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because then what you have is the leftovers.
That's true. And you work with what
you
you've
sort
got.
of adjust your wardrobe according to that.
Yes, that's also true.
Because I have a lot of stuff in my wardrobe that it doesn't fit anything. So I just wear jeans and t-shirts because
then it goes.
It goes. Yeah. So the sewing stuff that's in here, because
yes.
I can see there's a lot of
yes,
sewing
that's
stuff.
from Hirkel and Stuck.
Okay.
Yeah, she's in Stellenbosch. So she's done all the bee things for me. And then I've got the leather range, which is the key rings and the project bags. That's from M&M leather.
I'm wondering where she.
He is in Tableview, Bloberg area.
Oh, okay. And you've got obviously you have a deep love for bees.
Yes.
Okay. So is that where the name Hey Honey comes from?
Yes, because people call me Bee, short for Bronwyn, and so I just kind of went with the bee thing.
I did not know that. I didn't know that.
I know, people call me Bee. So then that became the logo and it's on everything. So when we decided to do our own yarn label, I wanted to go on the theme of the bee. Yeah, so it actually it's actually quite nice when you're doing promotion and stuff because you know what your theme is.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when I'm living in Worcester and you're living here. I don't know what people call you.
Bee, Bronnie, Bronwyn.
At least not Winnie. Yeah.
But that happened for many years.
Oh no!
Yes, that happened for many years. My mom used to call me Winnie.
Oh well, that's okay. That's okay if your mother calls you that. Okay, so those are the basics of your shop and your love for yarn. You said you started knitting when you were 14.
I was 14, yeah.
So who taught you how to knit?
Well, we all had those school classes. You know,
okay, the ones I hated.
Thing. Yes, those things. When you knit with dreadful yarn and horrible needles. And then I picked it up when I was 14, and I'm not sure why. I mean, my nana, she had passed away by then. She used to knit a lot, so I don't know if that inspired me. I have no idea. But I just remember picking it up and learning, teaching myself again. And I knitted a baby jersey for one of my mom's friends who was having a baby. And the other day I worked out that that baby's about 34 now.
Ouch.
I know that hurt. It wasn't a happy moment.
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about age. I mean, I was and speaking of that, my brother-in-law's eldest son just finished matric. That's very scary.
Son, really?
Yes. And I mean, we all have grown-up children. How, on that topic, how do you feel the current situation is? When I spoke to Mincy yesterday, she said one of the good things with COVID is that she noticed that her clientele is getting younger and younger.
Yes.
She said she's got a range of clientele from 28 to...
Definitely. Definitely getting strong. And that's great, because I remember when the kids were in high school, I so wanted to teach classes with the older kids, because I taught junior school kids to knit, grade 6. I did that for a year or so, and the boys were actually the best at it. They were the quickest at it. They picked it up the quickest. But I've always wanted, I mean, I've taught my girls, and they can knit, but they've never grasped it. But they are both creative in their own ways, though. Hannah does a lot of embroidery, and Carla does watercolours, and so they still have the creative streak in them. But it is nice to see younger people. I get younger clients. I've had a lot of them in their 20s recently.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. I think because if you look at it like that, that age, if they start knitting and they can teach their kids how to knit, then you've got a new generation basically coming up. And it's not just knitting, as you say, it's embroidery
and
sewing.
My son's girlfriend has taken up sewing. She's got a sewing machine.
Oh,
so we sew together. And I think that's also why knitting is reaching the younger generation. The make your own stuff, reuse everything, make your own, stop buying from China. There's a whole many angles to that. But the kids very much, although I mean my kids and their circles are very much into rather using your own stuff,
and also maybe self-sustainability.
Yes, yeah.
That's interesting, because that was another discussion. I actually asked the same question to Mitzi yesterday, and she said no, she doesn't really pick up that there's a fear element in it. But I was wondering about that, and maybe you can give your take on that, because when all of the shops closed down, and all of a sudden people realized that, I think there was this minute of, what if I cannot go to a shop again? What am I going to do about this? So I think especially the younger generation got to that point of, well, then we have to do something ourselves.
I don't know, but I don't think it's a fear thing. I think it's an adaptation. They realize actually they're quite capable of doing something. And I mean, there's a lot of a trend on Instagram and stuff of people making their own things. I mean, at the moment, a lot of the outfits the kids that are being worn as well are a lot simpler. So it's easier to do. Yes. Easier to do. It doesn't look so complicated. It's not a dreadful jacket or something with lapels and pockets and things. it's a shift dress or a pair of palazzo pants or a pair of shorts.
Or the 80s thing with the pair.
The shoulder. Let's come back.
I noticed that it's still ugly.
It's ugly.
It was ugly the first time it came out. It's still ugly.
It is. And I think that with those first 6 weeks of lockdown, I loved it. We were all here at home. We were all doing crafty stuff, which is right up my alley. We redid the garden. We did a veggie garden. The kids did a compost bin. In that sense, I think a lot of people learned to slow down and do things that they've been maybe wanting to do for ages.
Yes.
Take up a craft.
So as where we are right now, because I've noticed, because a lot of people have gone back to work. Do you think it's going to be sustained, or do you think people will? We just discussed it. Will people go back to their old habits, or do you think they'll keep up this good one then?
Yeah, I think that people aren't going to have as much time as they did before to do it, but I think it will still sustain. I think most people will. I don't think a lot of people will, but I think most people will. I mean, I look at Stuart's girlfriend Celine. She's carried on with her sewing. Obviously she's back with her studies. She's doing her degree, so there's a little less time to do it.
But she's still
doing it. Yeah.
From an entrepreneurial view, do you think going back to the old crafts, not just knitting, but crafts in general, will help this generation to get this idea that they can do their own, build a business out of stuff that they're making?
Yeah, I think so, because I actually was one of my customers and friends does crocheting as a job, and her daughter has jumped onto the bandwagon. She pays her mother. She's actually doing fashion design. She designs the clothing. The mum makes the stuff, and the child markets and sells it. Wow. So that's entrepreneurial.
That's amazing. Yeah. It would be so fantastic to have, and I think one of my purposes with these interviews in general is to get that element out, is to say, you know what, we are not necessarily bound to having a job with a boss for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
If that is who you are, if that is your thing, well, then it's your thing. Then stick to it, because some people.
But there are other options.
There are other options.
Lisa's just arrived.
Has she?
Yes.
Yes. I'm pausing.
Coming.
Okay, well, let's go again. And I just moved this camera a little bit to see if we can't get you a bit more featured, because this is a discussion with you, not with me. Okay. So we were in the process of talking about the
entrepreneurial aspect.
Yes. Yeah. And Liesl just said hi and couldn't stay. But what we will do is I will put photos, when I put this on my blog, I will put photos of her and using it as well. Okay, so does she die from home?
Yes, she does. Her husband built a little shed for her, and she dies from home. It's all set up there with the gas and the whole shebang.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good setup.
And she probably has gloves and stuff like that as well.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, otherwise you end up with very multicolored hands.
Which is why I always end up with very multicolored hands.
But you're the rebel in it, so.
Yeah. I forget to put the gloves on. By the time I had the gloves on,
I really stained. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so those are all the things about the yarn stuff. What do you, in this area where you're living, do you see, because I'm looking at what you are stocking, and we talked about this earlier, there are certain things that just don't work on in certain areas. In your area, if there are other yarn dyers out there that want to come to a place where they can provide wholesale in this area, what would you suggest? What would you tell yarn dyers?
It definitely works in this area, but I think within an area you've got you want to call them micro areas. So Eulogia from the Wool Crate in Fishhook, so we're about 5 k's away from each other as the crow flies, and we were discussing it the other day actually. So her market is more towards the non-natural yarns, the acrylic yarns. So a lot of her ladies, she gets a lot of customers from the old age homes that do charity knitting. So it's charity yarn and and she stocks a huge variety of yarn. But she said to me, she just doesn't, she personally, just 5 k's away, doesn't have the market for the indie dyed yarns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see, but whereas I do. So then we've got this little symbiotic thing she sends to me and I send to her. So of people who want what we don't each have, so we can rather try and work together as opposed to trying to compete with everybody.
Yes, well that always works.
Yeah.
So, but if you would say, for instance, in your area, because it's much colder here than in Worcester, I think if you have to say which would be a better silo here, would you sell? Would your animal fibre sell better or your cottons? Which is a stronger market?
Well, in summer cottons, unless you're me, I just knit with wool the whole throughout the year, because I'm always making another project. But summer, definitely cottons sell better. But I also think it's more about it depends on finances with people. That's a huge thing too. Because, making a pure wool jersey as opposed to making a cotton jersey, there's a difference financially. So it also boils down to finances and preferences. Some people don't like to work with wool because they find it itchy. And I think a lot of people don't realize that wool has changed. The sheep haven't, but the wool has changed in these years. So now that it's been superwashed and that chemically treated, it's not as itchy as it was. So I think people remember as a child wearing a wool. My mother was made to make wool knickers and things. So so being having to wear something wool and scratchy and icky put you off. So
especially wool knickers. I mean, really, that would be very bad. I would think cotton would be the better option. Would be the better option, because as I said, every area has, as you said, it has its micro area, and also personal preference. Do you think there's still a lot of education needed in terms of what about fibre in general?
I do, and I think even more, if the people who don't knit are interested, then they could also learn from it and understand it. So when I go to pottery lessons and stuff, and I think there was one lady who knits, and just they learn about it. They're understanding when I explain to them what the different fibres, and so actually on that about different areas. So to be stereotypical. Dreadful, but so say someone who lives in, a lot of people who live in Scarborough or even Komiki, they like
It's a daughter.
Trying to leave.
Trying to leave.
They,
it doesn't matter.
A lot of people in this area, should I say, prefer everything on a very natural. So they'd rather have yarn that's been naturally dyed. Natural, and they don't want any
botanical dyeing.
Yeah, that kind of thing. You know. So then you've got that market, but that is a very small market.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It is a very small market, but I think specifically about fibres, because I still have people now, the more you go into the rural world, the less people know. And it's so strange because they actually know sheep. They know that wool is wool, and but they will still ask you, you know, I want to buy wool. And I said, okay, I have wool. What do you want to buy?
Yeah, listen, that's why you use the term yarn.
Yes.
That's why I try and use that.
And yeah, but most of them on my side are Afrikaans speaking.
Wool.
So they'll ask, "Het jy wool?" And I'd say, "Yes, what do you want?" Because it's interesting. You've been to Bredasdorp, right? Yeah, I've seen you traveling there. So you see that amount of sheep that's there. It's sheep mecca in South Africa. And I have seen, when I did that workshop there, I noticed, for instance, that the women who live there, who work with those sheep, their husbands work with the sheep every day, but they don't know how to spin.
Really?
No.
Wow.
So that's what I mean with, you think we should have more workshops, more education in terms of fibre, and simply the general public to know that there's a serious difference between mohair and merino. There's also a difference between those two and alpaca, and there's a very big difference between that and acrylics.
Oh yeah, I think that's the education thing is great, especially when you think how they do their festivals. Unfortunately, with COVID, we haven't had one this year, but people are hungry for it. You can see it, and they're fascinated by the whole fibre thing. Fascinated how it comes about. I think that could be, and actually when you're talking, all I can think of is besides them, I can think of one other place I've seen where someone was demonstrating spinning, and that was when I got you that fibre up in Knitte.
Okay,
old Nick's village or something.
Corridale.
Yeah, the Corridale yarn.
Yeah.
That's the only time I've ever seen someone actually doing a demonstration.
Because I found that if when I go to the markets and I sit down with my spin wheel, the amount of fascination, I mean, the words you hear, I haven't seen that since I saw that in the fairy tale book.
I know, but I also get comments on my knitting. I knit everywhere I go. It's always with me. Yeah. Everywhere I go. And it's we were on the ferry in New Zealand, and that's another sheep there as well. And this elderly gentleman came up to me and said to me, I don't know when last I saw someone knitting. He said, yes, he did. He said, I don't know when last I saw somebody knitting.
In New Zealand? That's so strange. There's such a lot of sheep there.
But the yarn is very expensive.
Oh, okay.
Very, very expensive, yeah.
Well, no, because, I mean, you say you knit everywhere you go, and most of us, there's this trend that
always
started.
In my presence.
This trend that started knit in public, knit where you are.
That's
right, that sort of thing.
That's coming up in June, yeah.
Is it only for June?
I think it's only for June, yeah.
Oh. Well, I do it.
No, I mean that whole thing of international knitting in public day, where you get, everyone gets together in a restaurant or something.
Oh, good.
Something fun.
I know, because that's become like a habit of mine.
Everywhere I go.
But just those simple things, I think, for anybody watching this to be wondering, about education and how you educate people is simply you sit there and you do it and you talk to them about it.
By example.
So if you are talking to, say you are a knitter or a crocheter, or you do embroidery or whatever you do, or you spin, you just take a drop spindle with you wherever you go.
Which I've stuck at completely. I cannot do.
Well, it's interesting because I'm on my wheel the whole time at the moment, and I find I have to retrain myself to work with the drop spindle.
It's like going from crocheting to knitting.
Yes.
And vice versa.
It's exactly the same process, just in a different position, and you don't have a foot, you don't treadle. So, but if as a community we get to that point where we say we really feel the general public needs to be educated, then the best way would be to take your stuff to places. Sit down.
We sit at restaurants and on it.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, that's you and me, to my husband's great frustration.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No. I went to a breakfast on Monday, actually, and one of the ladies there is an avid knitter. And she saw my knitting, she goes, I didn't think to bring mine.
Yes. But if you're standing in a row in the shops, and that sort of thing, and that will create interest again. I think why I'm saying this is just to motivate people.
Yeah. Because
we don't really come from a culture where you take your knitting everywhere.
No.
Sadly. That's kind of a new thing, you know.
Yeah.
But to motivate people to do that, because the more you do it, the more the younger generation will see something and they'll get interested in it.
No, definitely. I think, and it's good for them and younger people too. I mean, my niece, I just taught her to knit. She's in the process of learning, and she's 19. That's nice and young.
Yes.
You know, I think that it's nice when we teach little ones, sort of, you know, as 10 years old and stuff, but they do tend to lose there's very few of them that become obsessed with it.
Yeah, but you do. Don't you think you sow a seed then?
Oh, definitely.
For later?
And yes, definitely. They've got some skill.
Yes. Just not the way we were taught, because I think if you start forcing it down on people, you know.
I can't really remember what we made. I seem to recall it was like in school. It was 2 squares that became a top.
Oh wow!
Disastrous. But
you came off light. We were forced to knit a jersey.
No. Oh, no.
We were forced to knit a jersey, and my mother finished it off, and I thought I would never in my life knit again. I don't know. It wasn't that time. It wasn't that point in the educational system.
We didn't graded for it. Oh.
No, we got graded for the entire subject, but not just for, you didn't know what you got for that one.
But I think there's a lot to be said for having lessons like that, because it's not just about learning to knit or sew a pair of pants or something. It's about silly things, fixing a hem, sewing on a button.
Yes, the little thing. Yeah. Do you think it will work if eventually we can go into the schools and?
Oh, I think so. I've wanted to get the high school for a long time to get in there and teach the teenagers.
Okay.
I think it'd be great. I think that'd be it, and you know, it's
especially now when they're sitting between classes and
exactly.
To have something to do.
It's good for anxiety, except when Hannah's trying to finish a project at like lastminute.com here. But generally it's good. But generally it's good for anxiety. It's good for stress. Takes your mind off things.
I'm going to remember that. Because that's the story of my life.
Yeah. So I think it'd be great for the kids to do something like that.
Okay, well, that's also good. I don't know, even how long have we been talking? Oh, it's not even half an hour.
There's 2 other videos before this as well. Remember, you got to decide which one you're going to use.
Probably this one.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's probably as I said, and I continue saying this, and with every single video is. We've known each other for such a long time. I don't want this to be all formal and
perfect. Well, we're not perfect.
No,
so
we're not perfect. Although, no, we're not.
No, definitely not.
And I don't want it to be staged or feel professional, because that's not what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
What it is meant to be is to show people this. And to show them this, the person behind the business, because I think a lot of people will see your face on Instagram, they will see your face on Facebook, they will see what you're typing, but they don't know you
as a person.
Yes.
Sure.
So once they get to know you as a person and see who you really are, then the association with what you are doing is much clearer.
Yeah.
I'm in my process of actually watching the yarn. I'm watching those boxes. Who's making the boxes for you?
Oh, the honeycomb shaped ones.
Yes.
Yeah. I found it at there's a carpenter in Maitland, Kensington. He's on the main road. I think it's a Malawian chap, not sure, but it's near my husband's factory. So I saw him and I had to park and then run back to his shop, and it was very sweet.
It's really nice.
Yeah, he was a very sweet. He had his young son working for him, and I bought the 4 that he had.
But that's really nice.
They're actually lovely for markets. That's why my stuff is like this too, in boxes, because if I want to do a market, I literally carry it like this.
So where do you do your markets?
Well, we've just started one in our community in our village now, actually.
Nice.
Every Wednesday night, and some people bring this type of food stalls. I mean, the thing is, that's what's so cute as well, is learning, and I think that happened in COVID too, well, when we had the lockdown. How many people in your area or in your vicinity have talents and what talents they have. And finding out this one makes cleaning products that are natural, and, you know, this one does home-based cooking, so you can order a meal from them.
Nice.
You know, someone makes candles, dog toys, there's all sorts of things. So it's actually quite sweet. So we're going to do one on a Wednesday night, and you just bring the stuff down. So I just take the honey down, because otherwise it's too much too.
That's fantastic.
It's just 2 hours, kids play in the park, just a community based.
And that's, yes, and that's much smaller than having a festival, but it can also be far more consistent at the end of the day. Yeah. Because the festivals are once a year. There's fees involved for everybody. Yes. You know, so. The one I do most at the moment is the Montague Market, and they also closed down with this.
The one next to the church.
Yes. Oh, okay. So, and I love that market because it's also community based. It's also it's a large market. Myself, but I really like that one because it's also more personal. It doesn't feel.
It's actually lovely. Last time I went there, we took the dog with us. People had their dogs, and it's very...
and I'm not taking my dogs.
No, you're full. You can't.
I've got 3.
Oh, you got 3. Oh.
I've got 3, but one of them is at least an equivalent of 4.
It'll just knock everything over.
Yes. So, but what I like about those markets is that it's one-on-one. It's and also it's not formal.
No, it's relaxed in a relaxed environment. Yes.
So you take your stuff. You
exactly
talk to a bunch of people, and you
get to know your. Well, here for me, you get to know my neighbours. You know,
build up a client base.
Yes.
So I think your take on markets is and building up client bases.
Yes, you definitely can. I think obviously the bigger ones you're going to build up a client base. You know, but I connecting with people is nice. Sharing. We went to this one 2 weeks ago, and people were like, "Wow, didn't know you did yarn, or you can get this kind of yarn," and you know, wool. They say you use the word wool, and they were more fascinated by the idea of it than you know what I mean.
It's amazing that you say that, because I was a full-time artist for 15 years, and nobody in Worcester knew that I was a full-time artist.
Oh my gosh. I do have a big sign on the house. I wonder what people think when they go past.
A massage parlor?
Knitt Shop Love, I don't know. I know, I had someone phone me today and they called it Knitte. He said, "Are you Knitte?" I'm Knitt Shop Love, not Knitte.
Was it somebody with an Afrikaans accent? Yes, that's terrible. It's like when I told you about somebody that I know that calls your shop Knitt Shoppe Love.
Shoppe. Just the old-fashioned spelling.
Yes.
Shoppe.
Shoppe Love. So that's unfortunately the Afrikaans people.
Look, I think
don't always know how to speak English.
I think that markets have their place. They're a lot of hard work. This kind of one that we're doing, Lisa and I are doing on a Wednesday, isn't. It's lovely and relaxed. It's literally get in the car, down the road, one road down. But they can be very stressful. Yes, it's a lot of hard work. And I take my hat off to people who do it religiously every single week. There's people who do it.
I can't do it every single week, but
there
when it's open, I do it.
But there are people that do it. They
at
do
least twice a month.
Yeah.
And driving from Worcester to Montague and driving back, the setup, and putting up your gazebo, that's a lot of work.
It's a big commitment. And I always love, because when we did like the last Quenty festival we did, my friend Debbie helped me with it. And you know, you shower and you prep and you're all ready and you dress nice, and you get there and you work like a maniac for about an hour and a half, sweating buckets, putting up gazebos, setting up tables, setting up. It's such physical work. It really is. Yeah. And then you got to present yourself, make yourself presentable to the customers.
Yeah, and I do it on my own. Sure. I don't have any help. So usually, that's what I mean with the more informal markets. What's nice is there's always help at the market. Yes, So, and even with Quenty, I remember they actually had young kids.
They were sweet. They were very kind. They did come and help us as well.
So, I'm thinking, if I remember correctly, Quenty was talking about doing one in April.
No, September is normally when they do the shearing. It's towards the end of the year. They were going to do one in the beginning of this last year.
Yes.
They were going to do a March, April one, but then they didn't.
They didn't.
last year, I mean 2020, and then because of COVID they didn't. Then they moved to September, and then it's just, you know, it's a destination market, and with COVID I think people were just too.
They were actually talking about it in the WhatsApp group.
Okay.
That they were thinking of doing it in April because there wasn't one last year.
Yeah, that's right.
And
that'd be lovely because it's a super place to go. The only thing is, as far as I know, they don't share the alpacas. Then they only share them at.
I actually don't know. I think the whole idea is just to get people out again.
I know, to understand them. And I mean, Richard and I went through to visit them a little while ago, and Richard still said to me the other day, he said, "I loved that trip. Just a one-day trip, love." No, he loved it because he got to get close to the alpacas, and he just thought it was the cutest thing. They've got one little one. I think it was called. No, it wasn't called. It was called something after. I'm not very good with Star Wars, Star Trek, Star Wars. It was called after one of those. No, never mind. I can't remember what it's called. And but they hand raised it.
Okay.
And it was so friendly. They would call it, and it comes across, and then it does this love thing with its head, and it talks to you.
You know, if that was a sheep, you would have gotten that.
They've got a headbutt. No, they're super cute. They've got little personalities. So, and he said he loved that. So just the two of us. There's not like there was a festival. So it is a nice thing for families to see the babies. And
yeah, there are quite a few alpaca farms at the moment. I actually want to contact them and do interviews with them as well, because and then I have contacts with actual sheep farmers in the dollar store.
Yeah.
And the whole so that we bring it back to where the source is.
Yes.
To actually go and meet up with people like the mohair farmers. You know, those guys are suffering at the moment. Yeah. They're really suffering. It's still very dry.
I assume they export most of that mohair. There can't be a massive market here for it.
Well, I've got about 2 kilos of unspun.
Yeah, but it's 2 kilos. You know what I mean? It's like...
You can buy it directly.
No, I know you can buy it. Yeah. I'm just saying, for me, look, as I said before, I don't feel the cold, so I couldn't think of anything worse than wearing. It's pretty. It's so pretty to look at and you know, to work with. But
I think there is a market for it here. I mean, a lot of people have eventually found out that mohair doesn't have to be scratchy.
No, it doesn't have to be scratchy.
If you have,
but it's warm. It's extremely warm.
Yes, and some people do feel the cold, like me. I get very cold, so it all depends, I guess, on again. I've seen a lot of people doing shawls with them, and that's
yes, I can see that as a definitely
because of the just of the feel of it. I've also seen a lot of blankets and.
Well, I bought some from you, so I can do blankets. That's the plan.
Yeah. But the mohair market after that big. And I mean, it came out eventually that it was an absolute fraud about the goats being treated badly. And do you remember that?
No, I don't.
There was this whole thing. I think it was 2018 that there was this whole allegation against the mohair goat farmers that they weren't treating their goats humanely. And there was this guy that came out, but he came from China. Okay, figure it. Sorry about that, but yes, we all feel that way about China at the moment. I felt like that about China all the time, for anybody who's wondering. And he came in from there, and he made these allegations. And it came out eventually that it was false, but in the meantime, the mohair market just went
plummeted
down the drain.
So
and
damaging,
then
isn't
it picked up in such a way that buying mohair tops at the moment is actually difficult.
Okay.
So it did pick up. If you listen to American podcasters, they will this with mohair and that with mohair. So you know, but it is I almost think a seasonal product. It will come and it will go.
Yes, I mean, I'd love to be able to get. I don't import yarn, but I worked with possum yarn that I bought in New Zealand.
No.
It's just amazing. It's just amazing. My husband wants to know why it's so expensive if they're the vermin, because they cull them.
Yeah.
They've been brought into, you know, they're kind of like rabbits on Robben Island. You know, they've taken over. So
it's like you feel about the baboons.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I don't think you could make anything out of a baboon.
No.
So, no. But anyway, the possums. Oh gosh, it's just. But literally, I could afford one skein.
Really.
So I just added it in with something else that I made.
Wow, that would be interesting. Somebody asked me a while ago, she had a dog with very long fur, and asked me if I would spin that, and I said
You
no.
said no, please. Oh, thank heavens.
No.
I couldn't think of anything worse.
But I mean, the difference between the yarns are amazing. And when you blend them together, it also works great.
Well, you're saying I get the Corriedale yarn.
Yes.
So when I was in New Zealand, Richard and Wayne didn't want to come into this museum, so Nikki and I went to this sheep museum.
Yes.
And it was really interesting. That's kind of, we see videos of people spinning yarn and videos of guys. They have a competition every year of sheep shearing and the speed and you know speed and agility. And they had this upstairs. They had this long cabinet, one of those ones where it's a glass topped, and it's got little compartments, and it had all these different types of sheep of the wool you get. And it wasn't just like Merino and Corriedale. I would never try and remember all of them. I didn't know there were so many.
No, they are
fascinating.
I followed a woman in France, and she spoke of their local sheep and the yarns you get out of that. And it's amazing because she actually had this farmer that supplied her with just fibre, and she had to clean it all herself. I think what's unique to the South African yarns, and I mean, I looked at the way she cleaned that fibre, and I thought, and it was just the top part of the sheep, because I don't know how much you know about that, but when you look at a sheep, it's only the top part that you can really use for fibre that you want to make something out of. So they she got that, and the way she cleaned it. But now I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, but if that's our yarn, there would have been so many stockies and stuffies in between. And they didn't, but they mostly grass. It's grass.
It's not dry and arid.
So with our sheep, you know, they're full of.
What's the coarser one? I forget the name of it now. There's that other one, Blueface Leicester.
Is Blueface Leicester coarser?
Yeah, scratchy.
Is it? I didn't know that, because it was very popular at one point, and then it sort of died down.
So the three that I know. I know there are so many.
There are a lot. There are a lot. Okay, so to finish this off, because we are now at 42 minutes.
It's very long. For the poor people who have to watch this or choose to watch
I
this.
think they're going to enjoy it. They are going to enjoy it. What would you like to say to the fibre community out there? Everybody involved with fibre. What would you like to say to them, just as a motivational?
I think we need to get out of there and promote ourselves. I think we need to really educate people, like we've said, on whether it's how you source your yarn, where you get your yarn from, or even how you dye it, what you do with it. And I think in us as knitters and people that teach, I love to teach, and I love to teach people a new skill.
Yes.
And one of my customers the other day said, she came to my sock workshop last year, and she said she's besocked. She's now besocked.
She was besocked.
So because now, and I always love that about teaching. I think it's so important when you teach people something, that when they grasp it, they love it, and they make, like she's besocked. She's made socks and socks and socks, and she just keeps making socks. And I love that. So I think the more that we get out there and encourage people, share your skill. You know?
Yes.
Share your skill and share your passion for what you're doing.
Yes, yes. And amen to that. I agree. Okay, guys. We have officially gone nearly to 45 minutes. We're going to love you and leave you. It was such fun to just talk to you. And the two of us can probably sit here and talk about yarn stuff.
Oh, for hours.
For hours while knitting.
Yes.
Sadly, we were not knitting, because then we would be talking just about our knitting.
Yes. Try and focus a little bit.
Yes, to try and focus a little bit on other stuff. But we hope you like this video, and see you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.